group members are Mia, Leslie, and Edwin, a part of Group 18. Today I will discuss the topic of GMOs, specifically why we should not label genetically modified foods. When we go to the grocery store, isn't the food that lasts the longest the type of food that we want to buy? Genetically modified foods are made to last longer, taste better, and have more nutrients. Genetically modified foods are beneficial to humans and the economy, and there is no need for GMOs to be labeled. Certain factions are advocating to labeling certain foods that have been genetically modified because they see this as an unnatural safe product to consume. In this presentation, we will talk about what a GMO is, the role GMOs play in everyday life, and what they can do and what we can do to educate more people on what a GMO is so that we do not need to label genetically modified foods in the future due to negative consequences that it can cause.
Today, certain factions that want foods labeled if they have been genetically modified do not really understand the negative consequence it can bring upon the thousands of people. According to Scientific America, private research firms Northwich Environmental Management consultants estimated that Prop 37 would have raised an average California family's yearly food bill by as much as $400. In other words, the lack of understanding what a GMO is the ill these factions face because they can bring highly cost to many families. Furthermore, the reason why these factions believe they're serving the status quo is because they do not understand the scientific education on what a GMO is. If we're to help further educate the public and these factions, it will help fix the ill they face. Educating the public would be the major benefactor to help spread the great ill so many people face, because evidently, due to this ill, they fight for a belief in which they do not fully understand until it can be too late.
Agribusiness companies use the GMO's technology in order to produce more food for the people. They safely create these modified organisms not to harm the public, but to help the public to eat a product that has been safely grown and looked upon. The reason for this is to help our crops withstand severe weather and harmful organisms that can destroy years' worth of agriculture. Furthermore, with this in mind, the consumption of these modified organisms in fact come in mind to the agribusiness on whether it is safe for humans to consume. Evidently, if it was not, they would have allowed these products to be put on sale. This takes me to a point that these functions that want these products labeled can potentially raise the price of foods and jeopardize so many safe products. So if this were to happen, the fault would be put upon them, or otherwise known as a blame. Their constant lobbying and protest can be no good to the public because they lack the knowledge of what GMOs are.
This year, at least half the states may consider requiring special labels on food that have been genetically modified to grow better. In other words, the question still arises whether to require labeling certain foods with genetically modified organisms, otherwise known as GMOs. An advocacy brought upon by anti-agribusiness factions and consumers who are in favor of labels. However, these proposals have been put to test in certain states in the United States, like California, for example, who overwhelmingly voted against labeling foods that have been genetically modified. Such a statement demonstrates the people's reaction on whether to label these certain foods, because if they were to vote in favor of the proposal, they would have voted for it. With this aim in mind, the solution, cure, is not to label these revolutionary modified foods, because by thrusting this attitudinal view that labeling products have been genetically modified can bring upon heavy costs to the consumer and jeopardize so many safe products in sale. However, the solution is to inform the public, otherwise known as the consumer, educate and explain the great achievements that genetically modified organisms have attributed to our society. This stigmatism of this agribusiness achievement is not the way to solve the problem because the vast majority of the people and the consumer do not understand what GMOs are or is. It is why the solution is simple: educating the public and reinforce what genetically modified organisms is to the community, to the society, and to the country. Evidently, once the public is well informed, labeling these products are of no means necessary because, as I stated previously, it would have been too expensive to label all modified foods, and it can jeopardize so many certain safe products that are in sale.
Genetically modified foods are important to consumers, and we need to know more about them. With this in mind, education on the subject of genetically modification organisms is an essential key. Once everyone knows what they are, how they are engineered, and how they are beneficial to our everyday lives, the public will have no need for wanting to label the products. Therefore, this advocacy over labeling all products that have been modified can be prevented in the future. Consequently, all factions would no longer pursue the negative view on GMOs on the public. We discussed how labeling GMOs isn't necessary, who is to blame for this, and what actions can take place so that we can prevent any labeling in the future. Thank you.